Hey guys, it is Jaden Amjadi. I'm coming to you today with a Modest Mouse concert review. I saw them last night in Cedar Rapids. I was thinking this week I would maybe do a review of the new Ice Age album, but I just, things have been kind of hectic lately and I haven't really had time to totally dive into it, although I have liked what I've heard from it so far. That being said, yeah, Modest Mouse concert review. At the end of this video, I'm also gonna kind of go a little bit into what I hope the future of Modest Mouse looks like, kind of based off what I saw at this concert. First off, the venue. I saw it at McGrath Amphitheater, and it's nice. It's an open area, kind of grassy, raised seating, and then there are chairs lined up on that grass. I'll talk a little bit about the opener, Mass Gothic. They played probably a 45-minute set. They're on Sub Pop, so fresh out of that Seattle hype land. And at first I wasn't so sure about them. They got on stage and I was like, oh, okay. So what it is it's Arcade Fire with a little bit of synth goth. Okay, sounds good. But I gotta say they did grow on me over the course of their set. They actually brought quite a bit of quirk to the indie rock, indie pop genre, and I haven't checked out their studio recordings yet, but I actually think I'm going to, because they've piqued my interest, I gotta say. They played with some more abrasive sounds in their set, which, the people who were going to see Float On, who came to the show just to hear Float On, didn't seem as interested in these abrasive guitar noises, but they did some cool stuff. Getting into the actual Modest Mouse show, they did about an hour and a half set list, including the encore, and I was really happy with the song selection, actually. We got a surprising amount of older material. We got some deep cuts in there. The second song they played was Tiny Cities Made of Ashes, and I was like, oh yes, this is perfect. Lots of Moon in Antarctica. I was very surprised. They played like 6 songs from Moon in Antarctica, and they played like 3 from Strangers to Ourselves, which I'm like, I'm fine with that, sure. I'm good with that. And I wonder, because, reception for Strangers to Ourselves, it was mixed. I personally, I like the album. I don't love it. It's far from perfect. There are some tracks on it I don't think needed to be there, and I think the production that they worked with too on that album was maybe a little bit clean, a little bit too ruly for what Isaac was trying to do a lot of times on certain songs. But there are so many good songs on the album too that I'd say it's a fine album. So they did only play like 3 songs from that. They actually open up with Tortoise and the Tourist, which I was happy with because that's actually one of the songs on that album that I preferred. And then also, of course, they played Lampshades on Fire, great track. And then they played Sugar Boats, which I was happy with because while I like the song on the album, hearing it live, there is just this wild factor to it that didn't really come up, because it was how it was kind of mixed and produced on the album. It was so much more wild and intense live, and I feel like in those wild moments live, that's when Isaac Brock can really shine. The majority was Moon in Antarctica. Of course, lots of good news for people who love bad news. A fair bit of We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank. Then they played 2 songs from Lonesome Crowd West. They played Gray Ice Water, which is a deep cut that I was really happy to hear. That was sadly one of the songs that people around me were just talking, and I'm like, this is a beautiful song. Pay attention. You paid to get in here. But no, it was very nice. When The World at Large started playing, there was almost like this communal sense of melancholy that washed over the entire stadium, because that's one of their bigger singles, and everyone who would be at the show would be at least mildly interested in this song, even if it is slower. Felt like we were all sharing a moment together, and it was beautiful. I was gonna talk about the set list more before going into crowd reaction, but I've kind of just mix them together at this point. Generally, crowd reaction was pretty solid. As I said, I was in the back. I wish I could have been in the front more, because I think, the people in the front were probably the most interested, rather than just, watching for a while, then when a song they didn't know came on, turning to their friend to talk. And I'm kind of the opinion that very rarely do chairs just inserted into a viewing area for a concert. Rarely does it make it as good of an experience as just general admission. But unless it's like a Sufjan Stevens, Carrie Ann Lowell tour, maybe, and you just want to like put your feet over your leg like this and say, oh yes, this is very pleasant. This is very pleasant indeed. Doing the Cockroach came on. That would have been a great moshing song. So much energy, and it was clear looking at people in the front that they wanted to, but with the chair set up, there was just no option for that. Played one new song, Poison the Well. Crowd reaction to it seemed fine. It's hard to tell from a live performance what my thoughts on the song are. And I hear it once. I don't strongly have any major opinions on it. I think hearing it, how it's produced, how it's recorded, will kind of decide whether the track wins me over in that context. They did an encore, and that's when they played, of course, like Float On. But I was really happy with the encore songs too. They played Gravity Rides Everything, and then aside from Float On, they played The Devil's Workday, which was surprising to me because the horn player, oh my gosh, the trumpet player here was fantastic, okay? One of my favorite moments was earlier in the set when they, and then also for the real quick, the last song they actually played was A Different City, which was a fantastic closer for them. It was wonderful. Super high energy, and it seemed like at this point Isaac was getting a little bit tired. So I'm really happy that he was able to pull through with a lot of energy for that last track, because I love that song. But anyway, the horn player was fantastic. Earlier in the set, they played King Rat. Highlight of the concert for me. Isaac Brock brought so much energy to the vocals. When those horns come in and he's plucking away at that banjo, oh my gosh, I gotta say, when I think Modest Mouse live is at their best, when they can be a little looser, when they're not as constrained to delivering super tight rhythms on the guitar, when they can just feel loose with their melody and their playing. There's so much heart that goes into it, and it's fantastic. I recommend seeing Modest Mouse live just to see King Rat live, because that song was amazing. But then how was Isaac Brock's performance overall? He's in his early, mid-40s now. It's been a while since he was writing a lot of these songs. And I gotta say, it does show a little bit. And he's still bringing so much energy to the show that, it doesn't even matter. You're just so happy and caught up with the charisma of the show. But, when you're listening to, say, Doing the Cockroach, and he gets into the faster vocals, as hype as it is, he's having trouble keeping up with what he's saying, okay? He's just trying to catch his breath. And, as well as with some of those older songs, I think maybe his range has also maybe decreased a little bit. There are times where he was kind of singing an octave below what he normally would, I suppose I would say, like on the recording, for example. But, the passion that he was putting into his vocals, you got that classic Isaac Brock rambling lunatic vibe that he's putting out. And, it's so lovable. It's so charismatic that it makes for a wonderful experience to see live. He embodies it. There was some mess up towards the beginning of the show. And, this is an outside amphitheater. It's right in front of this river going behind it. And he starts talking about this river from a cereal and how we're hiding the cereal from him, and that he wishes that he could have a pump that goes from the river where the cereal is coming through, this Berry Crunch cereal, through a hose to where he lives over in Portland, Oregon. And it's just, I don't know what you're talking about, but please keep talking about it. It's amazing. I love him. Embodies the entire performance really, really well. Which leads me into the final thing I want to talk about, which is the future of Modest Mouse after seeing Isaac Brock and the rest of the gang perform last night. So, I mean, what do we know right now? Strangers to Ourselves. It was supposed to be a part of a double album. And in interviews, when this thing came out in 2015, Isaac Brock was saying, oh yeah, we recorded 40-something songs, or like 30, high 30s, early 40 songs. And we're going to put out the next part of this album as soon as possible. Well, now 3 years have passed. And he said that he wanted it out in a year. So I'm wondering if based off critical response, maybe they are wanting to change things up a bit. Maybe they want to abandon the sound they were going for on Strangers to Ourselves, which I personally wouldn't mind. Golden Casket Volume 1. So even on there, it was planned to be a double record. I don't know, maybe Epic kind of didn't want them to go that route. I'm not totally sure. But I'm hoping what it means is that there's going to be a sea change in Modest Mouse's sound. And I think that Isaac Brock, the way he was performing, he should really be feeding into what his strengths are. So giving those very bassy, growly vocals, maybe a little bit slower, maybe a more intimate setting, maybe a little bit of stripped back instrumentation would do a lot of good for Modest Mouse, but really just being able to deliver those very growly, low vocals without having to worry about incredibly catchy, over-the-top hooks or super clean vocal production. On top of that, what the other place that they did really well was in those kind of wild sections where, you know, a trumpet is going and a banjo is going and they're just allowed to play very loosely. I think if complex rhythms aren't emphasized super hard, or maybe there's a little bit more improvisation in the recording process, that could also add a whole lot to Modest Mouse's sound right now and take them in an interesting direction. Assuming, of course, that Isaac Brock still is wanting to record new music, because obviously I wouldn't want him to put out anything that his heart isn't totally. And I know that that's part of the reason it took so long for Strangers to Ourselves to come out, because he didn't want to release anything that his heart wasn't totally in. And that's fair, that's respectable. So those are my thoughts. Whether the next Modest Mouse album we receive is part 2 of the Golden Casket, or maybe it's just an EP. Maybe we never hear anything else from Modest Mouse ever again. I don't know. But hopefully fans get something good. But only, of course, if Isaac Brock's heart is totally in it. That's where I'm going to leave it. This has been Jaden Amjadi coming to you folks from Drops Mic headquarters, which is my room. Drops Mic.